Paper Crafters Library. In this video I'm going to show you how I created this beautiful thank you card. So let's get started. You're going to need a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of Island Indigo cardstock from Stampin' Up! And I've scored this at 5 1/2 with my paper cutter and scoring blade, and I'm just going to fold and crease along that that score line with my bone folder, creating a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base. You're going to set this aside for a moment, and then you're going to need a 4 inch by 5 1/4 inch piece of Pool Party cardstock, as well as an embossing folder. And here I'm using this beautiful flourish from Cuttlebug. You're going to insert your Pool Party piece of cardstock into the embossing folder and run this through the Big Shot. So now I'm back from the Big Shot, and I've embossed my piece of Pool Party cardstock. You can set aside your embossing folder for a moment, as well as your embossed piece of cardstock. You're then going to need a piece of white cardstock, and here I'm using classic smooth white cardstock from Basil, and this piece measures 1 1/2 by 4 inches. You're going to need a black pigment type ink, and here I'm using craft ink, a basic black craft ink from Stampin' Up! And you're also going to need some clear embossing powder and a greeting stamp, and I'm using this beautiful script thank you that's found in Paper Tray's Big Bold Wishes. So just pick a fairly bold greeting, ink up your greeting, and then you're going to stamp this centered on your white cardstock. Once you've stamped your image, you can set aside your stamp, and you're going to want to emboss that with some clear embossing powder. So just sprinkle some clear embossing powder over the stamped greeting. Tap off any excess that you have, and then you're just going to heat this with a heat tool. And you can actually watch the embossing powder melt, and if you're unsure of how to emboss, you can watch a separate video on that. So once you have heated your stamped greeting, you'll see that you're left with this beautiful shine and raised image to your greeting. You're going to then take a piece of Island Indigo cardstock, and you're going to center and stick your greeting to that. Your Island Indigo piece measures 1 3/4 by 4 inches. So if you notice, I am aligning my left and right edges, but I'm going to leave equal borders on the top and bottom. And I'm going to stick this down using some double-sided adhesive. So once you've matted your greeting, you're going to set that aside for a moment, and you're going to need to bring in 3 different types of ribbon. And here I'm all using the same color of ribbon, and this is all Enchanted Evening from Paper Tray, but I'm going to be using the Satin Luxe, which is a 1/2 inch ribbon. I'm going to be using the Top Notch Twill Tape, as well as the extra fine polka dot satin ribbon. And I'm doing this because it does match with or coordinates with my card base color, so you're going to be using 3 different varieties of ribbon, all in the same color. And if you notice, I am still working on the spool of ribbon because I don't want as much wastage as sometimes I find that I get. So I'm going to leave the ribbon still on the spool, and I'm just going to use my i-magicut to cut my ribbon pieces. So if you can just bring in your i-magicut, you're going to turn that on so that it's lit up. Your indicator light here is telling me that it's powered on, and I'm just going to give this a moment to heat up. I'm going to start with my Luxe Satin ribbon, and I'm going to cut an angle. And the reason I'm using this machine is because I want to seal the ends of my ribbon as well as cut them. Because my ribbon is sort of my focal point for the front of my card, I don't want it to fray. So just open your ribbon, i-magicut, lay your ribbon inside using your purple guidelines, holding that in place. I'm just going to hold down my ribbon, or the button here, lift that up, and you'll see that you're left with this beautiful angled cut that is sealed as well. So I'm going to also cut my ribbon. So you want to leave some length, probably about a 4.5 inch piece of ribbon. So maybe about 5.5 inch piece. So you just want to give yourself some length of your ribbon here. As you can see, I have some extra length, and I'm just going to lay that in my i-magicut and cut that on a straight line, sealing the end as well. So I'm going to repeat that with my other ribbons. The twill, I'm going to cut on an angle first and then a length. So just lay that in, holding that in place. And because it's a little thicker of a ribbon, I am going to hold it for a little bit longer. Removing that, I see that I have a great angle there, and again I'm just going to cut a length off. Revealing my, oh, that didn't cut all the way through. I didn't hold that one down long enough. Just make sure that you hold it long enough for the thickness or density of your ribbon in order for that to cut through. So my next ribbon I'm going to take, and I'm actually going to cut a fishtail in it using my i-magicut. So I'm going to take my ribbon and I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm just running my fingers along to crease that somewhat. And I found, because I'm right-handed, that I want to keep my two open sides of my ribbon towards the right-hand side, and I'm going to lay this across from the top right-hand corner, or top left-hand corner down to my bottom right-hand corner on that angle, and that's going to give me the right fishtail. So just hold that down because you are cutting through two layers, and you need to give it a moment to seal both layers. Sorry, I said that on the wrong angle, so we're going to do that in the opposite direction. So open your i-magicut, lay it from the top right hand corner. It was right the first time, I should have stayed that way. Top right hand corner down to the bottom left, cutting that fishtail. And I'm left with this beautiful fishtail in the end of my ribbon. I'm then going to cut a length off. You can then set aside your i-magicut and make sure you turn it off, and when you're not using that, I would recommend that you remove the batteries as well. So now that you have all three of your ribbons cut and sealed, you're then going to take your piece of pool party cardstock and you're going to lay these along the outer left hand side. And I'm just laying them on my cardstock in varying heights. I'm leaving about 1/4 inch from the outer edge, and I want about 1/8 inch in between each of the ribbons. I'm then going to take my matted greeting and I'm just going to lay that over top so that I know that I have proper spacing. Because I know that I do, I'm just going to take a piece of regular Scotch tape and tape those in place. So I'm just going to place a small piece of Scotch tape, just tacking that in place. You could leave that there if you wish, because your greeting will cover that. And I'm just holding that in place so that I can flip this over, folding my ends down, wrapping those to the back of my cardstock. And I'm going to stick those all down with another piece of regular Scotch tape. So now that your ends of the ribbon are secured to the back of your cardstock, you're going to flip this back over, and we're going to stick this down to the card front using some Stampin' Dimensionals. So I'm just going to place my dimensionals on the back of my pool party cardstock. Remove the backing from my dimensionals. And I'm going to stick this down to my folded card base. And I just want to leave equal borders on all four sides. Once you have that in place, you're going to take your greeting and you're going to stick this down using some Stampin' Dimensionals. And you're going to stick it right over that piece of tape that you have securing your ribbon pieces in place. Just like so, straight across the card. Once you have that in place, you're ready to embellish. So now to embellish this card a little further, I am going to use the Builder Bird punch from Stampin' Up, as well as a scrap piece of Lucky Limeade cardstock from Stampin' Up. And I'm just going to punch out two of these beautiful branch type of images from my cardstock. You can set aside any of the extra pieces that may punch out, as well as the punch. I'm then going to take my paper snips and I'm just going to trim off the ends of my branches. So I'm left with these smaller branch images. I'm going to use some mini glue dots and I'm going to stick those to my bottom right hand corner of my greeting here so that it curls up around the side of the greeting, and then just below the greeting as well. So I'm slightly overhanging them in the center. And then my last step is to use some of Donna Downey's poppies and peonies, and I'm just going to use one of these larger pool party color flowers and the smaller one. So I'm just going to remove these from the clear backing, and you want to make sure that you get the adhesive with it as well. Once you have removed them, you're just going to stick them to your card in a small cluster here. And there you have your finished greeting card. And what a great way to use the i-magicut to seal and cut your ribbon as well. I hope you enjoyed stamping with me.